Constitution! Right on. I'm glad you didn't bring any pillow, but thank you very much for coming. It's amazing. You're sitting exactly at the same spot as was this morning. You didn't leave, right? Because it's so good. Anyway, we will continue discussing about this CO2 causing global warming stuff, but bad news first. Global warming can cause hemorrhoid. I'm very sorry. I apologize. And then I need to explain who Larry the Cable Guy is. For the older adults, I think you probably know who Larry the Cable Guy. He's from Nebraska, so that's why there's a topic about armadillo. You'll learn about armadillo. You learn about state animals of Texas. You'll learn about Nebraska. And again, for anybody who wanted to have my slides and so on and so forth and know more about my work, you go to visit this website, www.ceresseries-sign.com, and I do have a sign-up sheet for you to pass on your email, so in case you want any of this information, yes? Again, don't worry about global warming hemorrhoid. You really can solve it very easily if you just put this fan. That will work, right? Okay, thank you, Franklin. All right. Well, they say global warming is so bad, so we got to get rid of all the inhaler, right? I felt very sorry for the kids who have asthma and things like that. So you should not be. They are saying, well, it's equivalent to how many cars or something they were saying driving half a year's of car, 500,000 cars for a year, in terms of all the what you call greenhouse gas. By the way, that greenhouse gas is not CO2. It's come in very complex molecule form, like CFC, all kinds of complex things. So they are turning everything into a cartoon sign, so beware. Another one is obviously surprise, right? Global warming causes more diarrhea, obviously. That's a very bad stuff. And they want to tell you that to save the planet, you know what you're going to do tomorrow? You're going to use this reusable toilet roll. That's pretty nasty, man. And then CNN actually say, medical expert, pooping on your pants is very normal because they are trying to defend Biden, as you all imagine. So they even say that, if you look carefully, they even say that Wood Blitzer is also one of the CNN entity. He actually pooped in his pants. But that was before CNN launched their campaign. Well, it is none of my business, right? I poop on my pants, but that's none of my business. Well, it's about IPCC again, because they are the #1 promoter of this. By the way, they gave Nobel Prize to some of these people who work on the global warming problem. But it's unworthy of the prize because it's not very good. Later, I'll tell you what is worthy, right? One of the guys that I will propose to show you is the Nobel Prize laureate in physics. And indeed, CDC have a new mandate that you must wear adult diaper. They apparently have things like this now. But I really want to dedicate this talk to Larry the Cable Guy. Yeah. Woo. Anyway, before pizza, no pizza for you guys. You're gonna eat bugs, and you gotta like it. It's a very strange thing if you look at NPR, right? In 2013, 2017, 2018, during Trump time, they say that we all must stop eating meat. We got to eat bugs. But then comes 2023, they try to tell you that if you criticize bug eating, it will make you a racist. That's what they're saying. Right? Reverend Kraft, where are you? Eating bugs is going to make you racist. Not only that, you got to eat python. They say python farm now because you don't want to have too much carbon footprint, right? So you got to eat python too. That is another idea. And then you got to stop eating risotto. It's actually very tasty. No more risotto, guys. But then we can have Miss Kim here can flew all the way from LA to Paris to enjoy a little bit of cheesecake. These are all the celebrity CO2 people, yeah. Sad thing is that there are a lot of these psychopaths, I would say. I call them narcissistic psychopaths. And death cult indeed. Never mind about abortion. They actually are saying that kids are cute but not very eco-friendly. They essentially try to encourage and indoctrinate the whole younger generation. Not to have family, not to have kids, right? All in the name of saving the planet, yes? Unfortunately, it's not going to help very much. That's the sad reality. Joking aside, this is a very serious matter, so please don't fall asleep. These are facts, some statistics. Talking about death, right? Diarrhea is actually not so serious. Death is the ultimate death. If you have a study the statistic, you collect the data that anything that related to climate related, that has been downward. It's going down by 97+%. I don't know what they are talking about exactly, isn't it? But indeed, what does the climate change have to do with Larry? You will see the video of Larry near the end. Of course, I'll explain what I think. He's rather knowledgeable, by the way, on these issues of climate. But let's start with this. Who say this and when? Climate change is something that is real and is here and is now. It impacts everything. The question is that it's not that climate change caused it. The question is how much worse was it made with climate change? There is climate change signature on all these events we explain. It's really a matter of how strong the signature is. It's actually the state climatologists of Nebraska. Okay? And it's very sad, and I'll show you some example of what she do that is wrong, obviously. But this is another one of those propaganda, by the way, right? So for state of Nebraska, I apologize. Here's what happened in Nebraska. 2020, the winter, 2021, I think. You have a massive snow blizzard. I hope it's not caused by global warming or CO2, isn't it, right? It's one of those improbable phenomenon. They are trying to tie something, weather, to climate, which is very strange. It's not so easily connected, by the way. So they randomly use a lot of this newspaper article to do this. And indeed, yeah, when is it that? Oh, I've already showed this before. But anyway, this is one of the graphs this state climatologist is showing. It's basically showing the temperature of Nebraska and global temperature. And you notice that something is very odd in that picture. For those who know about climate change and temperature record, this is very odd because it shows that 1920s and 40s is not really very warm, and it's actually kind of flat, okay, to the 70s. And I'll show you what happened here. And this is state climatologists of Nebraska. I am hint, they're actually sort of changing the data. And here's one example, because if you look at the global temperature curve, this one is produced by NASA. In 2001, actually, you see the warm in the peak in the 40s, and then actually it cools in the 70s. But when you come in the 5 years later, 15 years later, 2016, there's no longer any cooling trend. Because Newsweek and all the major newsprint media was actually expecting that it's supposed to keep cooling and then ice age are coming. That was the prominent ideas during the 1970s or so. Indeed, there are old data records show you that there is a very strong cooling from 40s to the 70s. I want you to remember this period because state of Nebraska, state climatologists actually flatten it up, making it flat. And this is just one example of how they manipulate the data. This is a temperature record from Haverhill. Notice that the temperature from winter to summer is 60 degrees. Yes, up and down, like I say. If you change the CO2, it's not going to change anything. I'm sorry, you can't do none, right? And this is what happened. They make it move it up. That was the original data. Now I put it in animation mode. You can see. They up and down, right? This is the new correction. That's the old one, and then now they change it to that way. That's how they change data, isn't it? There's no reason to do what they did, actually. So shame on them in that sense. And then there's another very popular way of showing global warming. It's actually color blindness. My good friend, Professor Cock Hayden, has called this chromoagic psychosis, which means even energy has a color, they say. Usually green or even red, okay? But this is what they do. Actually, this is one of the weather temperature report by one of the TV meteorologists in 2017, where they show temperature like, 30 degrees and 31 degrees. By the way, these are all in Celsius, I think. And it was in green. But comes 2022, where the temperature is much cooler, but they make it red. So they use the color to manipulate your mind in case you're not too smart. Because you don't know even how to read numbers. This is very scary, by the way. This is actively going on, okay? But I have a question. Why is armadillo not the state animal of Nebraska? You all know the answer, right? Actually, the first...
Texas.
What?
It's Texas.
Oh, Texas. That's right. Smart. So what's going on? How can that cooling that I was mentioning can be ignored? Who can we consult on this matter? Actually, this 9-banded armadillo, state animal of Texas. Somebody really smart from Texas say that, right? So it is state state animal is being vaccinated in 1927. And you know what? You cannot lie. You can probably lie by changing the thermometer data, but you cannot lie by studying armadillo, okay? Here's how you study this. You all know there's a thing called Audubon Society. John James Audubon collected a lot of data from actually the migration, the population of armadillo. From 1846 to about 1954 or so, you can see the slow migration northward of armadillo. That just tells you that the temperature are getting warmer, so it's suitable, the environment is suitable for armadillo. And then they keep going up and keep migrating further up to 1962, reaching the southern portion of Kansas and actually southern part of Nebraska even. And guess what happened after that? Weather started to cool. Then it started coming backwards. By 72, the survey showed that the population migrated and moved down. This is a very definitive proof. Climate does change. It has changed. But then state climatologists in Nebraska say there's nothing to change from the 1940s to that. And these are actual record from Nebraska, in Lincoln, Nebraska, one of the towns that you look in any old scientific papers, you will see the actual strong cooling, few degrees or so. Few degrees is actually exactly what they say that the global warming going to cause, by the way. So the cooling of that magnitude is rather large, and it's actually been sensed by the armadillo, this animal. It's not so easy actually to fool the animal. They need to know where to live. They don't drive a car and things like that. So it's inconvenient for them to drive up and down, right? They follow where the weather is, right? Trying to find food and things like that. So this is what the problem is. Look at the curve again. It is manipulated. So did the armadillo lie? Who is lying here? Indeed. Reverend Crown, I think we can call this a lie, don't you think? It's kind of bad, right? Here's an actual record that me and some of my colleagues, we produced a record like this, but it's average over the northern hemisphere. And this is a very special record because, as we already mentioned a little bit in the first talk, most of the thermometer data across the globe has been contaminated by this thing called the urban heat island effect. So our idea is very simple. It's not even an idea, by the way. It's embarrassing to even do this. But we say, why don't we look at all the rural temperature record over northern hemisphere? And that's what we got. Notice that 1940 to 1970, the very strong cooling. First of all, you have that warming from the 1900 to 1930s, right? So the 1930s warming and 40s warming is real. Grapes of Wrath and all those books like that actually were describing this. Armadillo is feeling it, and then it's just warming and cooling, right? So indeed, this thing is even confirmed by the Infinite Profit for the Climate Crooks, the UN organization called Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. They actually describe that period, and they say that this is likely to be very large change and have natural origin. And I'll try to show you that this is probably related to the sun, okay? And then we have something called the U.S. National Climate Assessment. By the way, beside IPCC, we have something called U.S. National Climate Assessment. Have you guys heard of it? No one, huh? Okay, good. Now you know. But actually, you don't really need to know this. It's another bureaucracy, okay? It's very sad. They formed about the same time as the UN IPCC in 1988 or so, when Al Gore was very hot. You know what I mean? He was big-time senator. And it was always been, from 1990 to 2023, it's always been the 13 different agency kind of organization. But something changed. Because the Biden administration apparently was not busy. You know, all these southern people, let's open up, let everybody comes in. So the Homeland Security decided to join this. So now we have 14 agencies. This thing changed in February. This Mallorca guys apparently was not so busy. They actually now are involved in climate change. Not worrying about all this illegal, all this guy jumping across the border, isn't it? Really strange situation. And they produce report. It's the same report. And then they have very strong conclusion. This is one of the latest report that just came out about 2023, about 2024, January or so, December, transition, so I can put 2024. And look at the kind of nonsense they put out. They actually were so confident. IPCC, by the way, say a lot of this process are natural, but they say no natural known to science could have caused this long-term temperature change. The only credible explanation for observed warming is human activity. Really? I think I'm going to go home now if it's true. By the way, the basis of the temperature record is actually this. This is the one that temperature curve, if you study the Benjamin's video and our papers, you will see that this is a wrong record to look at. Because they are studying urban heat island effect, they are not studying climate change really. Because urban heat island effect is not caused by CO2 or sun or anything. Actually more to do with how you change the concrete. You know, the land surface, big cities started to build up. Even in places, remote area like Arctic, most of the stations are put near the airports. So you're not measuring temperature, really. You're measuring the airport concrete, retaining heat and releasing heat. Basically, that's what you're doing. And it's you really have to be very careful about this. And then, let me see, that was old climate assessment. Previous one. Notice that they have a bureaucracy. Every few years, they have to issue a report, isn't it, right? So that was the one from 2017. I just want to put up the curve because it's the same curve that showing you the global temperature curve. But I actually found something that fit. So if you look at the foreign-born population growth, from the time of Barack Obama to, I guess, Mr. Trump is kind of keep it in control in the green, and then Obama again, and then go in blue. But during Biden time, actually it showed global warming, I can tell you. Kind of fit. That's strange, of course, but it's a funny correlation, by the way. Just want to show you. This is crazy curve. Anyway, this is why the real Nobel Prize laureate by the name of John Clauser actually say that the IPCC or the US National Climate Assessment is one of the worst sources of dangerous misinformation. Okay? Of course, he don't use the word lie, but it's essentially equivalent to lie, isn't it? And myself and John Clauser are actually a very nice guy. So you can see my two sons, Ben and Franklin. Emily didn't get to go because they say I cannot bring Emily to Texas. But we happened to meet John Clauser last week at another meeting. And it was very fun to meet such a good guy to discuss science and talk about things. And then we got the average D student.
People on this program without a background in health.
Yes, you have no background in science.
Healthily. But there's really no polite way to put it. The climate crisis is killing people.
Oh, yeah.
It is knowingly, wittingly allowing people to die and infecting them with disease and providing them with air that kills people because we're not willing to take the steps necessary to do what we know we need to do.
No,
and
we
what
don't.
People have been screaming about for 30 years, 35 years plus now. Many of us were in Rio. I was there in 1988 when Jim Hansen first testified to us about what is happening. And every year now, millions of people around this planet are dying because fossil fuel and methane emissions, called greenhouse gas pollution.
Pollution.
Gas,
no, pollution. CO2 is gas of life.
We used to care about pollution. We used to apply a polluter pays principle.
Anyway, he's nonsense. Let's keep going.
But now those methods.
He's a bit nuts. Well, it's him. It's also saying that, the Biden administration is so nice. Everything they do is no politics, no ideology. It's all reaction to science. These people don't even know what science is. I don't believe they can spell science correctly even. And that's what they're doing. Indeed, it's the average D student that talking things like this, right? You remember when we showed the state climatologists in Nebraska say that extreme weather are getting worse and things like that. I just want to point you two examples, for example. Now let's study how the extreme weather has been changing. For example, tornado is one of the most serious stuff happening in the Midwest, right? It's a common phenomenon and we should study what are the trends. Here's the data. From about 1979 or so, 80 or so to about present. Where is the tornado being increasing, right? It's been decreasing actually. If it's global warming causing this, don't you think we want more global warming? If, I'm just saying if. Unfortunately, the statistic is going better and better in that sense. And then, but most people worry about money rather than life or the statistics of the event. If you count the dollar money in some equivalent units, you can see that the cost of tornado damage also has been decreasing over time. So that requires another layer of studying, right? To evaluate GDP values of money changes over time. Another phenomenon that is very common that people are accusing carbon dioxide can do instead of diarrhea and all that is actually coral reef. They say coral reef are being killed off by this global warming, right? It's actually causing all kinds of acidification, this and that. But the data from a Great Barrier Reef, the latest data point from my good colleague Peter Reid at James Cook University in Australia, by the way, he got kicked out of the university. For what? Do you want to know for what? For telling the truth. for talking about things like this. The university actually banned him, and then he sued the government and the university, but he lost the case because Australia don't have a jurisprudence system like what we have in the United States. So it's very sad actually. These are all top good scientists, intellectual, and trying to tell the truth, but the only reward they get is to get fired. He's a full professor of physics, get fired because he wants to tell the truth about Great Barrier Reef. It's not dying off. Think about things like this, right? We're not even talking about injustice. It's a strange thing, you know. Why do you even do things like this? But that's what they do, day in, day out. That's what they're doing. And they want all of us to give up, by the way. Are we going to give up, guys? No. Thank you. So this is why jellyfish has survived for 650 million years, despite not having any brains that give hope to many people, I would say. They are coming after you, okay? It's serious stuff. This is a secret recording from a guy named Charles Ismay, Massachusetts Undersecretary of Climate Change. He was addressing this Vermont Climate Council a few years back. He actually said, let me say that again. 60% of our emissions that need to be reduced come from you. The person across the street, the senior on fixed income, right. There's no bad guy left, at least in Massachusetts, to point the finger at, to turn the screw on and to break their will so they will stop emitting. That's you, that's John Kerry type. That we will have to break your will, right? I can't even say that publicly, but of course it got recorded, okay? This is what they are thinking behind their brain. These people are seriously deluded, psychopaths, all kinds of phenomenon that they need some help with, I can tell you, right? So this is true statement. And my good colleagues, Professor William Harper at Princeton actually used this graph and I borrowed from him. Let's talk money. How much? How much you think it's going to cost? The fix its problem, whatever the problem, it's non-existent obviously, but let's play the number game because they like to talk numbers. Is it really about $100 billion a year? By the way, no one is paying into the fund now. Only the silly US is paying about $10 billion a year into this. Only us. It's always only US. No one, European Union, maybe they just squeeze a little money out of them, but nobody else. Everybody want money. But no one is paying into this $100 billion a year kind of fund. This is the United Nations idea, right? To solve climate change. Throw money in, throw money in, throw money in, and then climate will change. That's what they're saying. But is it really $100 million per year? Actually, the number is huge. Let me put the quote here. Forget about national debt. Y'all know that U.S. national debt, which will be paid for you, not by you, actually, is your children and your grandchildren. Understand, Ben and Frank, Emily? It will be paid by your great-grandchildren or something. This is a huge amount of $34 trillion. That's a lot of zero, okay? But to solve this global warming thing, you need 90 trillion in 14 years. This is serious spending, my friend. Nobody get that kind of cash around. But you know what? I have a good solution. Please don't be afraid. I fix it. Let me fix it. All you do is just put a little mask behind the thing. You're going to stop global warming. Not a problem. All right. This one is a bit funny myself. But anyway, this is the problem. We have a serious problem. We have kids that have been improperly educated, been indoctrinated with all kinds of lies. And then so we have this disease of half-truth. It's an absolute disease. It's evil even, okay? Here's the math equation. Al Gore usually solves this very quick. 1/2 and the truth plus 1/2 and truth, Al Gore will say, is the truth. One truth. Excellent. You got A, Al Gore. Actually, it's equal to lie, obviously, right? No wonder there's this novelist named Franz Kafka say, true things lead, untrue things mislead, isn't it? And I can tell you that they've been trying to demonize this CO2 for a very long time, isn't it? Here is one case in which that I felt we need to keep fighting this so that we can revert this Supreme Court decision. This decision came in about April 2nd of 2007. I actually thought it was an April Fool jokes when it came in actually. It was CO2 was categorized to be air pollutant. This is why this Kerry is using that kind of language. You hear him say carbon pollution is pollution, that pollution is pollution, that pollution is pollution. But he refused to look at the greenness of the planet, isn't it? It's absolutely not. Pollution cannot cause the planet to be greener. So it's a lie, right? Plant food, no way. But then we are using this human law, not God's law, again, to try to change this definition of CO2 molecule. Again, I remind you, if you do this to CO2, you're going to get the next thing, which is oxygen, really, okay? I'll show you why. This is why our late Justice Scalia, who think very clearly, Anthony Scalia, right, passed away, and he actually say, if you want to categorize CO2 as an air pollutant, then it follows that everything airborne, from frisbee to flatulent. Flatulent, you all know what it means, right? F-A-R-T, isn't it? Anyway, it defies common sense. This is the kind of case that we have to overturn. So let's work hard a bit, because the future is, this one cannot be stand. This law cannot stand actually, because it's so damaging. And then that's why they are pounding their chest. Guys like Kerry, they get to use the word pollution easily. It's based on that reasoning, but it's flawed, isn't it? So no matter no amount of law like this, I'm going to really defy it in some sense. It's silly. Washington is a very strange place, but this is a very beautiful shot. One of those days, during one of those beautiful days that the moon appeared over the Lincoln Memorial. We have such a great tradition in the United States, but we are being run by really a whole bunch of crazy people that is really trying to ruin us. Evil people, really. So indeed, this is the rust, and it's caused by oxygen called oxidation. You breathe oxygen every day. If you can do this to a chain, just imagine what it can do to your lung. Please share to help and raise awareness about danger of oxygen. I told you, it's going to come. That's how bad this thing are. Be careful. So, what is climatology? Climatology, let's turn off the light. You know, it's like looking in the dark room and say that you found a black cat that is not there. I found it. I'll go. I got A. Seriously, I want to quickly go over, explain to you what is climate change being driven by in some sense, right? I kind of hint already a lot, it's the sun. But then we want to show you some data, some results that we are able to produce. And these are indeed some new and old results that we produce. And most of the credit should go to the young man over there, Dr. Ronan Connolly. And his father, Michael Connolly, is another brilliant thinker. So three of us get along very well. Since I speak a lot of Irish, occasionally, things like that. I do a lot of poetry, from time to time. So my ding dong ching chong, it doesn't work sometimes. So I try to do Irish now. We are from the group of Center for Environmental Research and Earth Sciences. So we produce a lot of scientific work. I'm not just talking, so this is just a list, example of this is what you do to teach a student. When you research a topic very carefully, and then you try to estimate, you try to do calculation, you get some number, estimate this, and you produce a bunch of this thing that nobody read. But by the way, our paper is very popular. I'll give you one example, the bottom one, the one that 10, S 2023, Sun and 36 co-author. That one was actually downloaded read by about 80,000 people now. Okay? Usually a paper, if you have 3 authors, it'll be read by 3 people. And now we got 70, 80,000. That's why they want to destroy me again. I've been destroyed. They try to destroy me so many times. Now they say again, I'm a liar. I'm paid by fossil fuel company. I have a secret Swiss bank account, this and that, and all that stuff. My God, all my kids, every day we eat buffet. But anyway, so we go to how to do this. We go to take the thermometer station, but not from the urban city. We have to remove that, take first order estimate, just see what it looked like. Because we don't know even what it looked like. Can you imagine that all the people get paid by our taxpayer money? From the CDC, from the NOAA, from the NASA. Nobody even do what we did. So we do a very simple thing. We just check it out. We are scientists, so we check it out. Here's the temperature record. It's actually from up there must be Arctic, right? China, US, and then Ireland, and then Arctic Circle. The temperature curve looked like this from about 1880 to about present time. And then you average them together, it looks like this. You have seen this curve before, right? It doesn't look like that it's too dangerous of any global warming. It shows that it's warming from 1880s to 1930s and then cool and then warm again. Okay? This warm could eventually, sooner or later, is going to go down. That's the way, law of nature, because there's a way in which the system tries to redistribute heat and seek balance. But we found out that most of these changes can be explained by what the sun is doing, actually. And here's a small treat in the sense that this is among the very first photograph of the sun. It's done by the Harvard College Observatory. That's where I used to work. And it's a very nice way to see this. But mainly that we want to study all the outside of the sun. So these are all painting, by the way. It's not X-ray images and things like that. But the photo is real. The photo is one of the earliest photographs of the sun. I think this one is done in 1870 something, right? Indeed, the sun is a pretty big size. So this is the relative size. The Earth is actually about 110. No, you can put 110 Earth across the sun diameter, right? If you do in three-dimensional, it's actually about 1.3 million. So, 110 to the power of 3, right? So you get about that. So you got about 1 million times bigger, more Earth inside the sun. But let's explain what the sun is doing. So we'll play this short video. Oops. Franklin, how this one work? And then, no? Can you come and do it, Frank? That's the fun part of studying the sun, by the way. You get music, natural music from the sun. It sounds like that every day. It's actually sunspot. It's a very intense region of magnetic field. Inside the dark part is about 6,000 Gauss. The average Earth magnetic field is only half a Gauss or 1/4 of a Gauss. So it's some 10, 12,000 times stronger. So sun is a gaseous body, boiling. And all the background behind is actually boiling stuff. It's convection cell. Hot stuff rises and then cool near the surface. It's creating that interesting phenomenon. And see how the sunspot behave and merge. And then occasionally when they mix, they produce solar flare. Recently we had a lot of solar flare, by the way. This is another one of those famous Sebastian Bach composing, right? Anyway, if you look at the blue curve again, and then the red curve now is the estimate of how much the sun irradiance has changed. I guess, Al Gore, is it fitting? Yeah, it kind of fit, isn't it? But that's what we do. That's what you do in scientific work. You carefully try to explain if this phenomenon is possible. That's as far as we can go now, right? So we estimate the energetics, this and that, so on and so forth. And that's what you seek truth. If it's wrong, it's wrong, but it's actually quite true. Okay? So this is the example just to show you that in different regions they fit. If you fit for average, you should fit for most of the region, like the Arctic and the Chinese temperature record, and then the US. US, we have the best temperature record. We have the densest, the most carefully well-kept record in the world. So if you find a signal in the US, it's very happy. I would be happy to say it's something real that we're seeing. But what is actually causing this thing to happen, to work? It's not just the sunlight coming in. Okay? So what is really causing the relationship? Remember what I told you in the first talk? I hope you remember. Water vapor, yes? And here's now the relationship between that sun changes in the light output, and then the blue curve now is not the temperature. It's basically the sunlight coming in evaporate the water from the ocean or the land. That's it. And that's the water vapor amount in the atmosphere. That's it. That's simple. That's why they don't want you to hear a story like this. That's all I have to say. But that takes me 32 years to tell this story. It's a very careful work. So please appreciate how science works, right? I still got a few more minutes. Let me do this. Here's a very nice image about a sandstorm that happened in Mars. So we have a rover over there so we can start taking picture like this, right? By the way, that yellow thing is not my fault. It's just a projection. It's not the sun. And now, here's the question. If the sun can cause climate change on Earth, what's the best way to test the hypothesis? We ought to be able to find it somewhere else in the planetary system, isn't it? Maybe that's the idea, so we test that, right? So indeed, we can find evidence like this. This is planet Neptune. The cloud on Neptune show different concentration of brightness versus the blue. So over time, 1994 until 2020, you can actually study this thing. You find that during the sun's activity, this is where I show you sunspot example, the sunspot activity, right? You go from low to high about roughly every 11 years or so, okay? And then if you study that carefully, you actually can find that it does fit. These are the data, right? Some of the data point collected in terms of the planetary albedo, the one that David Kopech was trying to explain to you. The cloud, the amount of cloud is changing the light reflected. So if you measure that with the UV radiation of the sun estimate, it kind of fits. So in some sense, it provides you some confidence. If the sun can cause climate change on planet, you ought to be able to find it in Mars, you ought to be able to find it elsewhere. So we have consistency. That's all you have. You don't have proof. You have consistency. That's what scientists. So what this tells you is that if you want to reject the hypothesis that the sun causes climate change, it's very, very difficult. You really have to work a lot harder. Okay?
You gotta be honest.
We talking about
any worse than what we got.
We couldn't, right?
Here, Larry the cable guy now.
You're talking about Al Gore and global warming.
Oh, gee. Yeah, I gotta be honest with you. Global. What a farce that's turned out to be. I was just up in Canada.
Yeah.
Global warming. You know, I had a polar bear beg me to shoot it in the head. It was so cold up there. I'm not kidding. Anyway, that's what I told the cops. But no, global warming and this Al Gore. I mean, you know, he's always like the CO2 level. It's like, come on, Al. I don't know what the CO2 level is, but the BS level is getting pretty high. I know that. And have you seen him lately? Global warming hasn't melted his ice cream any. Good night. He's blowing up like a tick on Dracula. Al Gore is. He needs to sweat a little bit.
Well,
And here's another thing. They discount.
The sun.
Nobody ever says anything about the sun. It's our fault they got global warming, but they discount the sun.
Blame the sun?
Yeah, I mean, you got this big ball of fire in the sky, but yeah, that has nothing to do with it. It's humans that are doing it. You know, that's like sitting at a bonfire and somebody lighting a cigarette and somebody else going, put out that cigarette, it's getting hot in here. You know what I mean? It doesn't make any sense.
It makes no sense.
And Al Gore and everything, how did all the ice melt, Sean? We've had, what, 4 ice ages alone?
4.
Once the whole world was covered in ice?
Yeah.
I mean, was the dinosaurs driving SUVs and stuff around back then?
I don't think so.
It makes no sense.
It doesn't.
No sense. Don't you think Larry the cable guy know a whole lot more science than John Kerry, don't you think? Or the state climatologist of Nebraska. All right, we're almost at the end. Take home point. You can say rising carbon dioxide, atmospheric CO2, has not caused the globe to warm or cool. Okay, it doesn't do nothing, rapidly or even gradually. Instead, climate in the US and elsewhere is obviously disconnected with CO2. The sun is a clear factor for climate change. So, cutting CO2 emission to zero will not change temperature or rainfall, precipitation, it means rainfall or snow, in US. But instead, it will hurt or kill poor people, greatly harm animals and the environment. This is why you have to say, I love CO2. Really, no choice. It's a very natural statement. It's a correct statement. It's a guess of life. So one last takeaway message. Scientists say that the universe is made up of protons, neutrons, and electrons. But they really forgot to mention about the morons. Thank you.